Here comes a new challenger!
What's up guys, and welcome back to another video with Challenger TCG. We are doing another set review. This is part 3. We're going to be covering the Mind cards. We're rating every card in the first Riftbound set with a rating between 1 and 10. First off, we have Lux Illuminated at 6 energy and 1 power for 5 might. This unit reads, when you play a spell that costs 5 or more, give me +3 might this turn.
Not a big fan personally. 6 for 5 and a power is already a little understated to begin with. There's only a very limited amount of spells that actually cost 5 or more, and even less so that you actually want to play in a deck. And obviously this effect gets a little bit better as the card pool gets bigger, but even +3 might isn't a lot. You're getting an 8 for 6, and we've seen a lot of these like conditional beat sticks, and most of them aren't very good because their conditions are kind of hard to meet. And as I've said before in previous videos, the more expensive the beat stick becomes, it doesn't really matter what the condition is, because once you get to a certain cost threshold, the size of the unit starts to matter less and less. You really want effects like this on earlier units, not later ones, especially ones with a condition as stringent as this. I'm going to give this card like a 3. I do not think this card is very good at all. Even if you like had a deck that was playing a whole bunch of 5-cost spells or more, I don't see why you wouldn't just want to play a more worthwhile, immediately impactful bomb than you would her. Yeah,
I think 3 for Lux is good. She's got a champion. She's a champion unit, which is decent, so she can be played out of the champion zone with Lux, but you're not really getting a good payoff off of this. You're usually playing the other Lux. This one's not very playable. Next up, we have Consult the Past for 4 energy. This is a hidden spell at reaction speed that says draw 2.
This card's decent. I mean, it's effectively a draw 2 that can be cost you no energy. The 1 power is kind of nice. You do have to control a battlefield, which is somewhat of a requirement. For 4, I'm not as big of a fan as this. It is reaction, which is nice, so you can play it whenever. You don't have to worry about you can like leave it open and wait for your opponent to do something and maybe leave some energy up for reactions, but it's all right. I think this card could potentially see play, especially where draws become more needed. I'm gonna give this card a 5 out of 10. I think this card is all right.
Yeah, I like 6 for Consult the Past. Draw 2 is solid. Reaction is good. The hidden is really how you're going to play this the most, and you get super value out of this playing this in Teemo, but otherwise you're not going to want to play this card for 4 unless we get some like blue Aurora deck in the future. Next up, we have Eager Apprentice at 3 energy for 3 might. This says, while I'm at a battlefield, the energy cost for spells you play is reduced by 1 to a minimum of 1.
So this is interesting. These cards always usually end up getting played at some point, especially when you get to a combo deck that's just like trying to play a bunch of spells in the same turn and combo off potentially that way. Now, there is a restriction on it, which I really like, that a lot of games in recent years have been putting on their cards, especially spell reducers or reducers of any sort, is that they only go to a minimum of 1. But even with that restriction, I still think this card is decent. I like the limiter they have on it design-wise, even if that makes the card worse. A 3 for 3 is on rate. I don't think this has a place right now because there's not enough spells, but I really do see the potential in this card based on its stats, based on the way it reads. The only real drawback here is that it does have to be at a battlefield, and I think that's what kind of keeps it from reaching its like true potential. If this could just be at a base, it would be significantly better. But again, on statted, on rate, it's a good card. I'm going to give this a 5, and I think this could be higher, but because it has to be at that battlefield and because it only drops to 1, I think that kind of holds it back from its true potential.
Yeah, I like 5 for the Eager Apprentice. Don't have much else to say. I pretty much agree with all your points. Just 3 for 3 is a great rate. This was seeing play in some early Kaisa lists, but it just started falling out because of a lot of the apparent weaknesses. And we just don't have enough spells that really need this. Next up, we have Falling Comet at 5 energy. This spell is action speed, says deal 6 to a unit at a battlefield.
Overall, a well-rounded spell. This is like probably what I would consider right now the like standard on par for spot removal. 6 damage for 5. It doesn't cost you a power, which is nice. It's like not quite spot removal, but it's pretty close to it. 6 is going to clear just about every unit that costs 6 or less. Par like a few like of those like units that get buffed. I mean, I think this is a solid spot removal. It's not too ahead of the curve though, where like it demands play. It's not really a staple, but I can see where this fits, and I can see this going in some of the Victor decks possibly. I'd probably give this card a solid 6. It's a decent card. Maybe that's a little high, but I like this card. It's good.
Yeah, I like 6 for Comet. I think that it has just enough things restricting it, like the battlefield requirement and action speed, that kind of hold it back from being premium removal. But the biggest upside is definitely the fact that you have to pay no power. That lets you just go straight to 8 ruins, even if you went first, right after you play this, which turns your Watchers online, and that's where you want to be in blue decks. Alright, next up we have the Jeweled Colossus at 5 energy, 5 might. This unit has Vision, which is when you play me, look at the top card of your main deck and you may recycle it, and has Shield.
I like Vision as a mechanic. I think it's very good, especially in a game where you only start with effectively 5 cards, 4 plus your draw for turn, and there's not a whole lot of draw or filter in this game, so I do like Vision. It's a 5 for 5, it's on rate. The Shield +1 defender makes it alright as well. It doesn't cost power. This is like a very average card. Like, this is a card that I would see in a draft and be like, oh, this is a good draft card. I want to take this. As constructed play, it's, like I said, it's just an average good card, and oftentimes for standard decks, that's not good enough. This card, I think 5 is the perfect number for it. It costs 5, it's got 5 might, and I would give this card a solid 5.
Yeah, I like 5 for the Jeweled Colossus. This card is okay. Next up we have Lecturing Yordle for 3 energy. This is a 2 might unit with tank that says when you play me, draw 1.
I mean, this card's great. It's a little below rate, but it draws a card. It has the added upside of tank, so it does have to be assigned damage first, which I'll say, having played with tank a good amount, on smaller units, it doesn't come up a lot, but it does come up just enough to be worth it. Like, I mean, it's just extra, right? Like, you're just getting, like, it's like ordering a cheeseburger, and they're like, we'll put some bacon on it. And it's like, well, I'm not going to say no unless I'm counting calories or something. So, yeah, I'll take this. Like, might not be as good as bacon, but it's good enough. Overall, I think this card's solid. It's a great filter. It's great in any deck, like, especially control decks where you really just want bodies and you don't really care what their stats are, so replacing themselves is like the best thing you can ask for. I would give this card a solid, I give this like a 7. Maybe that's pushing it, but I think this card's pretty good.
Yeah, I was also between 6 or 7 for the card, but I think that just a unit that's this cheap that replaces itself is just so good. It doesn't cost you any power like most other cards that replace themselves that are on bodies. So yeah, this card's great. I'll give it a 7 as well. Next up we have Mega-mech for 7. This is an 8 power unit with vanilla.
Yeah, this card sucks.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say about this guy. And I know people want me to be more positive about when I give reviews for cards, but I got to give it to you straight, guys. This card is not good. So it's above rate technically, but like I talked about before, the higher you get into the curve, the less these stats start to matter. And this is just a vanilla 8 for 7. It doesn't cost power. Great. Like, who cares? It doesn't have any like relevant characteristics really. Not that many cards do yet. But like, there's no reason I see to play this card ever, especially one that costs this much, because for 7, you can just get so many better things. Even in draft, I don't even know if this card would be good if they had like a draft format. Honestly, this card might be my first 1. Maybe it's not that bad. Maybe it's closer to a 2. So I'll be generous and give it a 2. I really have to reserve 1s for like really bad cards, but I see no reason why this card should see play.
Yeah, I think Mega-mech is a 2 just because the 7 for 8 is slightly above rate, but other than that, you're never going to touch this.
Yeah.
Next up, Orb of Regret is a 1 energy gear. Exhaust it, give a unit -1 this turn to a minimum of 1.
I can see the potential with this, especially when you stack multiples. Like, I can see where this gets a little bit better. All these minus spells say to a minimum of 1, so that's not like a restriction on this. That's just what they all have. Doesn't cost power. Like, 1 cost is really cheap, so it fits into curves really well. I actually think this is kind of decent. There are some cards with similar effects that give the buff in similar manners. I actually I like this card even if it doesn't see a lot of play. I'm going to give this card a 5. I think this card is actually pretty decent.
Yeah, I think that the card could see a lot of play in the future, if especially with combined with like the removal stuff in blue-red. This just lets your removal spells hit better, but it also sometimes is just a shrink so that you can go over bodies. It's just very versatile. I like the card. I'll give it a 5. Next up is Pit Crew for 3 energy and 3 might. This says, when you play a gear, ready me.
It's interesting. Now, in a lot of games, effects that ready would allow them to attack multiple times. If there's like a revolving door type of combat where you have multiple guys can attack as many times you want, as long as you can tap them. This game, that is not the case. You can only have a thing attack to a point that you haven't captured. So I don't see a lot of utility in readying this. Maybe in some sort of combo deck where like you're using a gear that's like having this untap and then like there's some purpose to like having it ready, like if you have some combo card, but it is on rate, which is nice. And like having a guy that could potentially ready multiple times a turn could work somewhere. I'm failing to see where that could be in a game where you can really only score two points in a turn or deal 2 damage a turn. For me, this is going to be a 4. I just don't, it's on rate, so like I can't dog it too much, and it does have an effect, but I don't know where this is going to be really good, to be honest.
Yeah, I think we would need a lot of cheap gear for this card to be playable, and even then it's only going to matter in the early game. Like maybe you'll score 1 extra point, or you'll just be able to like return it home after a conquer so that like you get a little more value out of it. I think 4 is fine for this card. It's okay. Next up, we have Riptide Rex for 6 energy, 6 might, and 2 power. This unit says, when you play me, deal 6 to an enemy unit at a battlefield.
This is my boy, Riptide Rex, aka Angry Sea Shark Cannon. This is that dude. I love my boy Riptide. He was great in Runeterra. He's great here. Absolutely love this card. We got a 6 for 6 on rate. He does cost 2 blue power, but when you read his effect, when you play with this card, you'll know that's nothing. This guy is absolutely incredible. I have a huge soft spot for this guy. Absolute stud. Dealing 6 to an enemy unit at a battlefield is incredible. There's not too many things that do that, especially while developing a 6 body, 4/6. Like, this would already be like, we're talking about Falling Comet for 5 doing this. Now you get a 6/6 body for just 1 more energy and 2 more power. Like, I think this guy's absolutely stellar. Love him. I think more blue decks should play this. Like, a lot of Victor decks don't play this, and I assume that's because of the power cost. I think this guy's incredible. I'm going to give him, he's probably, I know I've been talking him up a lot, so I'm going to give him a 9. He's probably closer to an 8. Maybe a 9's a little too high when we've put cards like Charm in that category, but I think this guy's great. And because I have a soft spot, I'm going to give him a 9. I love this guy. I think he's awesome.
Yeah, I think 8 sounds good to me, but I could see the argument for putting him at 9. This card is very impactful. It lets you just clear things or make trades that you normally wouldn't make. And unlike Snapvine, this guy can't be shrunk. You know, nothing can interrupt his 6 damage. It's not a fight. So it's just so much better, and it's only 1 more energy. This card's just fantastic. Next up is Smokescreen for 2 energy and a power. This is a reaction speed spell that says give a unit -4 might this turn to a minimum of 1.
One of the better combat tricks, in my opinion. I think this card's pretty solid. -4 is a lot, especially for 2. That's almost ensuring that you're going to win any early game fight. It's going to let you take any point. Now, the downside, it does cost a power, which isn't common on really cheap spells like this one, but I still think this is a really solid card. I think a lot of blue decks should be playing this, and we do see most of them doing just that. Ultimately, I think this card's solid. I mean, it's a great combat trick. I'm going to give this a 7.
Yeah, I like 7 for Smokescreen. This card is just one of the best combat tricks in blue. It's one of the best spells in blue, period. It just gets you out of so many situations and helps you make trades that you normally couldn't make. Next up, we have Sprite Call for 3 energy. This is a spell that can be hidden and is action speed. Lets you play a 3 might Sprite unit token with temporary.
So I think this card's solid, and I mean the biggest, most important part of this card's text is that it puts in play a ready unit, and for blue that's really important because it is like a more slow, like control type color. So having units that can attack immediately are really important. I'm not sure if this is good enough to see mainboard play just yet, but I do see a spot for this. It's 3. It gives you a 3 on rate. The downside is it's temporary. It has the upside of being hidden, so you can combat trick a guy to a battlefield to win a fight, which is nice. It has a lot of utility. Again, the real thing holding it back is just the Sprite is temporary, so you're only making this for a turn, which again, sometimes that's all you need to push a point or win a combat. I think this card's pretty decent. I could see this seeing more play in the future, but I think it's more of a sideboard card kind of right now for matchups where you're looking to be a little bit more aggressive. I'm going to give this card a 5 out of 10. I still think it's really good, but it's hard to fit because blue has a lot of really good spells as it is.
Yeah, I agree. 5 for the Sprite call. This card is kind of like a pseudo damage spell, and it can be used all kinds of ways. And like Alex said, blue just doesn't have a lot of ways to take points really early with because their characters are kind of understated, not really on rate like this card is. This card just lets you handle early game a lot better. So if your deck really wants early game pressure, then you might want to play these. Hopefully we'll see more token based strategies or things that make us want to play these in the main later in the game. Next up is Stupefy for 1 energy. This spell is reaction speed, says give a unit -1 might this turn to a minimum of 1, draw a card.
So typically cards that cost 1 and draw a card just as a baseline are usually pretty good, depending on what their upside is. And this is great because it's a combat trick. A lot of fights you're going to go into, you're going to be 1 below, or you're going to be tying, and you win the fight with little downside. 1's really easy to fit into any curve, as we talked about before, and it replaces itself. So they're like, the downside is almost lost. You're winning the fight and you're drawing a card. It's almost like a +1. I think this card is solid, and the draw 1 just makes it so reasonable to justify splashing in any blue deck because it's replacing itself. I love this card. Reaction speed, I think it's solid, doesn't cost a power. I give this card a 7 out of 10. I think this is one of the better spells in blue.
Yeah, 7 is right on for Stupefy. This is one of the best spells in blue. Pretty much every blue deck playing 3 of this card just has so much utility. Next up, we've got Watchful Sentry for 2 energy. This is a 1 might unit with Death Knell, draw 1.
So this guy was, they took this guy word for word pretty much and just moved him right from Runeterra here. And I think he's pretty much just as good as he was in Runeterra. I mean, this is just a body that replaces itself. Like I talked before about the last card, when you have a card at a baseline that's super cheap that just says draw a card somewhere in its text, usually those have some degree of playability or at least consideration. This guy is kind of like Stupefy the unit. Even though he's only 1, he doesn't need power. He just needs to be able to push and take a point that's uncontested. And then when your opponent comes back on him to take that point back, it's fine because he just replaces himself. You don't lose anything. Ultimately, I think this card is great. He's just a body to push a point and replace himself. And like I said, in a blue control deck, a lot of times that's all you're looking for is for your cards to replace themselves. You don't need big statted units a lot of the time because you let your spells do the talking, especially in control decks. So I think this card's solid. I give this card 6 out of 10. He's just a great 2-drop, one of the better ones in the game.
Yeah, I agree. 6 is on point. Like you said, a lot of the times in the early game, it doesn't really matter if your guy's a 1 or a 2. You're usually getting traded on the crackback regardless. So the fact that you get to get traded on and replace the card is just really valuable. Next up, Blastcone Fae is a 2 energy unit, 1 power for 2 might. This unit can be hidden, and when you play me, you give a unit -2 might this turn.
So just another kind of combat trick. It can even be played as a unit from hand to do -2 in fights. 2 for 2s on rate. I mean, this guy reads pretty decently. He's going to be better in like a Teemo type deck where you can react, where you're looking to have all these reactions and these combat tricks. He seems all right to me. I guess the one downside is you do have to have the battlefield to set him, and that's where he's going to be really good. But he is going to add a lot of power to that battlefield. That's a 4 swing -2, and then the 2 he offers. So I think he's a pretty solid card. Honestly, I would expect to see more play out of this card in a blue deck, but he does like he's more of a spell, and his downside is that he costs a power even if you play him from hand, and I think that kind of keeps him from reaching his true potential. He's a power to set him or play him, so I'm gonna give this card a 5. I mean, if this guy didn't cost a power, obviously this guy would be like a 7. He'd be one of the best 2s in the game, but because he costs that power, it kind of just it holds him back a lot from really being like a staple blue 2.
Yeah, I think 5 is good for Blastcone. In Teemo, this card goes up to that 7 because you're not losing a power to set him at a battlefield, so you're just getting a free body for 1, but every other deck has to pay the power, and he's just not quite good enough for that. Next up, we've got Energy Conduit. This is a 3 energy gear that says reaction, tap it to add 1 energy.
So it's mana rocks are nice. I mean, this is like, it reads decent. 3 is a little bit of investment just to get 1, especially when we see ramp spells effectively being the same thing, but they give you a permanent, they actually give you that extra resource, which can then be used to pay for power, whereas this one can't. It also isn't susceptible to gear removal when you play the ramp spells, and they typically come cheaper than this does, or at least on rate. I mean, I think this is nice, especially if you can stack multiple of them, but ultimately it just reads kind of like a bad ramp spell to me. I'm going to give this card a 4. It's just like, it is like extra ramp in this color that doesn't have it, but it's still susceptible to gear removal. So like if this ever was really good, they could start citing gear removal. And for 3, it feels kind of slow. For 2, I think this card would be really good. So I can see where maybe they decided to go with 3, but I'm just not feeling it.
Yeah, it's the only ramp spell in blue right now. I do think that it's a pretty good one. One of the coolest things about the card is that it lets you go above the typical mana threshold. So like normally in the game, you max out at 12 ruins. This card actually lets you theoretically, right, in a perfect world where you got it all out, play with up to 15 ruins. So you could do crazier plays, or if we get like in the future some like crazy combos that need like 13 or 14 mana to pull off in one turn, then this is going to be how you're actually able to break the game's resource system. But until we see those things, I think I'll just give it a 5.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. Especially in the blue color, a lot of games don't get to 12, and when you do, you don't usually need that many. But maybe if there's a combo deck, but that's a good point that I didn't think of, is it does let you break the mana cap, which I guess is an upside.
Next up, we have Garbage Grabber for 2 energy. This is a gear that says recycle 3 from your trash, pay 1, and tap it to draw 1.
Okay, so this card actually has 2 applications that I'm thinking of off the top of my head. Number 1 is combo deck, where you're like just like fueling your grave for a draw engine, like kind of just like if you had like a self-mill deck, this does create like a pseudo draw engine. It only costs 1, which is nice, so like 1 is easy to fit in your curve, and then the initial 2 costs, so like I can see the upside. The second application is actually a silver bullet for a mill deck, so if your opponent's trying to mill you, this is almost a silver bullet, because if you stack up multiple of these, you're not only putting 3 back, but you also get to draw a card. So I see the potential here, and I've talked about in other videos, I don't usually give silver bullet cards less than a 5, especially when even though it's not an application that's practical now, there are no real mill cards. I can see where this gets better, and because it has applications beyond just the silver bullet, I'm still going to give this a solid 5. Like, maybe this card's even a 6. This text reads really well. I think the format does have to be a little slower for this, but this does create a draw engine if you have a deck that self-mills. So for now, I'll give 5, but I can see the potential cards even like, this could be like a 7 or an 8 in the right deck.
Yeah, I like 5 for Garbage Grabber. I think that it's a cool combo piece. We just don't have a lot of those decks yet. Maybe in like a Teemo color combo of blue-purple, where you have a lot of ways to like pitch cards from your hand, or like discard your hand, draw 4, things like that. You could just like fill up your grave really quick and then start using the grabber to kind of just set up your deck with only the cards that you want to draw for the rest of the game. That's just not really where the format is speed-wise yet. All right, next up is Gemcraft Seer for 3 energy and a power. This is a 3 might unit with vision, and other friendly units have vision.
So like I talked about before, I like vision as a keyword. Other friendly units having vision, that's great too. It does cost a power, even though it's on rate. It's a 3 for 3. The power kind of holds it back. This is just a combo piece. this is going to be good in a deck where you might like tap out, play this, and then the next turn you like try to play a bunch of guys. The one problem I do say is right now we don't have any 1-cost guys in the game, and that's where a card like this would be really good, is when you're just trying to dig through your deck to combo pieces. So you play like a bunch of 1-cost guys and you just keep digging with the vision, or you're trying to trigger something where like cards like Nocturne that when they see themselves like come and play. I see this as a good combo piece. It reads very well. It effectively works like a fake draw engine sort of. So for that, I'm going to give it a 5. I do see the potential here, and I even see where this could maybe even see play now. I think the power is really what's restricting it, but like this is a good card. It reads very well.
Yeah, I think 5 is good for the seer. Don't have too much to add. I think that this card has a lot of potential in maybe like if we ever get a Victor combo deck in the future, like you said, you could just pay 1 to make tokens that cycle and basically look through your deck really quickly. Next up is Mushroom Pouch for 2 energy. This is a gear that says at the start of your beginning phase, if you control a face down card at a battlefield, draw 1.
So another decent one. I mean, it is a draw engine decks like Teemo. It might be a little bit slow, and it does require you to actually hold that point, which I mean, Teemo can do that. Like that's kind of the point of it, is like with all these kind of like combat tricks that you're setting, it's hopefully helps you hold the points. The problem with this is that how you actually hold these points is the face downs, and if you're flipping them face up to hold these points, then you're not drawing the card. So this kind of works, this card works a little contradictory to itself, and because of that, I think it's a little bit worse than it ends up reading. I think in practice this card doesn't work as well as you want it to, even when you can have multiple sets at one battlefield, so you could potentially flip one, keep the other face down. I think when you start seeing a higher density of set cards that are playable, this card could improve, but right now I don't think it's good enough, especially since Teemo is using their face downs a lot to hold these battlefields. And for it to really be good, I think you'd have to control 2 battlefields and have a set at each of them, and I think that's, or like multiple sets at each, and I think that's a very tall order, especially when your hands can get a little clunky. I'm going to give this card a 4 out of 10. I'm not a big fan so far.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing holding it back is that it's at the beginning phase. Maybe if it was like at your end phase or something, that way you could get the draw pretty consistently, this might actually be a really good card. But if it's at the beginning phase, that basically means that you didn't use your hidden cards, so you're not getting value out of your hidden cards. Of course you can get value out of them in the future turns, but usually you're hiding something and hoping to use it so that you can hold the point. If you don't hold the point, then you lose the thing that you were hiding anyway, so you have to reveal it. So you're not going to get the draw a lot of the times unless you're just like super ahead. I'll give it a 4. Next up is Portal Rescue for 3 energy and a power. This spell is action speeds and says banish a friendly unit, then play it to base, ignoring its cost.
So the classic blink spell, and if you've played card games before, you flashes a guy in and out of play. The problem here is its action speed, and the issue with that is, one, you can't play it in response to any sort of removal or pump. You can't use it on your opponent's units, so you can't fizzle out their pumps or push them out of combat. It just loses a lot of the utility that you usually have with types of spells. It costs a power too, which is very costly. It's 3. That's a lot for something that oftentimes you're trying to play at reaction speed. So the only place left for this is some sort of combo where you're just trying to re-trigger some sort of when played effect, or some sort of ETB, or like you're trying to like move a guy out of a point so it doesn't get killed. Ultimately, because of these restrictions, I think this card loses a lot of value that these types of cards usually have. I'm going to give this card like a 3. I really don't like it, especially because of the power cost. I don't think it's very good, and I think the potential is so limited because of its cost and restrictions.
Yeah, I think that like saving your unit is pretty good. We'll see another card that does that later on, that sees a lot of play, but 3 is just a little costly, especially with the power. If you ever get to like blink an angry sea shark, then you're happy about that. But yeah, Portal Rescue, give it a 3. Ravenbloom Student is a 2 energy for 2 might unit that says when you play a spell, give me +1 this turn.
Another solid 2-drop, just a 2/2. Base rate's good. It has an upside of getting +1, and that's for the whole turn for any spell that you play. This is great because we've seen a bunch of these combat tricks in blue, so now imagine all these shrink combat spells kind of said shrink another one. It's not quite the same, but you can even use these before these enter combat, so you could start shrinking things, bump these up, and then move into combat. So if you're worried about any of your opponent's potential damage spells that only hit things in the points, you can kind of play around those a little bit better. I think this is a solid 2-drop. One ruling I would like to note with this is if your spell gets countered by something like Deny, you actually don't get the buff on this. So that's something important to keep in mind. I don't think that takes away from any of this card's rating, though. It's just something I thought I'd mention. This is another one of the solid 2s. I'd give this card a 6 out of 10. It's just one of the better playable 2s.
Yeah, I agree with 6 for the student. Not much to say. This card is just solid and one of the best turn 1 plays. Next up, we have Retreat for 1 energy. This is a spell at reaction speed that says return a friendly unit to its owner's hand. Its owner channels 1 ruin exhausted.
This is a card I go back and forth on all the time because it reads well. It feels good. Like in some matches, it feels so good. In others, it just feels like a dead card. I have a hard time evaluating this card. I've played a lot of it, like a lot of this card. It's in like every one of my Victor decks, and Victor's probably my main right now. I like it. It's probably a little bit better in Kaisa because you have a few more of these Accelerate guys, and that's where I think it really shines, is putting stuff like Accelerate guys back in your hand. Where it really shines is in the slower matchups where juggling your when plays or your accelerates is a lot more viable because you don't care about tempo as much. You kind of just care about like valuing and getting that extra ruin and kind of ramping up and making sure you have enough resources to make all your plays. But it really does shine in those matchups, especially on some of the bombs like Watcher, like Angry Sea Shark Cannon, aka Riptide Rex. I think this card is good. I'd like to give it a higher rating, but some matchups it just underperforms so hard, and others it does so much better. I don't even want to say this card's a sideboard card. It just feels very polarizing at times, but I'm going to give this card a 6 out of 10. I like this card. I just feel like it reads better sometimes than it ends up playing.
Yeah, I'm like you. Sometimes this is the best card in my deck. Sometimes it's just a brick. I think 6 is fine for Retreat. It does do really good things sometimes, and especially in decks like Kaisa where you have the Kaisas and the Dariuses, you get way more value out of this card, and it's one of your best cards. Next up, we have Singularity for 6 energy and 2 power. This says deal 6 to each of up to 2 units.
This is the go-to removal. I love this. This is my dog. This is like the Tom Brady of removal. If I'm down 25 points at the end of the third, this is who I want throwing the ball. This card is cracked. So the first thing about this card, this is one of the only cards in the game, one of the only spells rather, that can hit units not in the point. The other one is Shooting Star, and we talked about how that card's like a 10 out of 10. Well, this is Shooting Star times 2. This is like super Shooting Star, like Shooting Star on crack. And not to say that it's better, it's just like a juiced up Shooting Star. So I think this card's absolutely incredible. I love this card. I play this 3 of in any blue deck I can. I see no reason not to. This guy's the GOAT. He holds it down. I mean, there's so many different applications. You can break 2 points. You can hit guys in the back. The only real downside to this card is, I'm gonna blank on this card's name. I always forget its name. Anton.
Unyielding Spirit.
What is it? Unyielding Spirit. That's the only thing that holds this card back from its true potential. It just feels so bad when you pay 6 and 2 power, and for 1 energy, your opponent just hard counters this. Other than that, this card is absolutely broken. I'm going to give this card a 9 out of 10, and if it wasn't for Unyielding Spirit, this card would be a 10 out of 10. Like, I know we're not supposed to rate cards based on other cards. Like, in a vacuum, this card's a 10, but like that one thing drives me insane. But this card's the GOAT. I love this card.
Yeah, I think 9 is great for Singularity. This is one of my favorite cards as well. It is worth noting that this is one of the cards that in like Victor, this card is very good because you usually have bodies to use this card to keep pushing points with. But in like, say, Lux or other blue decks, unless you've already developed things beforehand and actually invested to put bodies on the board, you don't get quite as much value out of this as you do in Victor. But it's still a great card. You're still going to want to play this in pretty much every blue deck. It's also worth noting, because some people do get confused. I've played against people who do get confused like this. Unlike Falling Star, this card cannot shoot the same unit, so you cannot deal 12 to something. It specifically needs to target 2 other units, so that does, again, give a small point to Falling Star, but yeah, this is one of the best removals in the game, and I love this card. Alright, next up is Sprite Mother for 4 energy and a power. This is a 3 might unit that says, when you play me, play a ready 3 might Sprite unit, temporary token.
This one's another solid one. We talked about before how I like the spell and how it could be like a potential side. Well, this is the spell, and for one more, you get another 3/3 body. I mean, I foresee this being a staple in a lot of blue decks for a long time, unless they power creep this out somehow. I mean, again, this just makes 2 bodies, one of which can attack immediately. It can also, if you already have a point, just put 2 points in that, 2 bodies in that point to help you hold. This card has a lot of utility, and for blue decks where a lot of times you're just trying to have your bodies either replace themselves or be able to attack immediately and take a point, this does that so well. The power, it does cost a power, but I think that's very minor for what it does. It's a 4 for 3, so it's a little below Wraith by itself, but it creates another 3. That 3 is also really good at holding the point, because a 3 body is actually something that's really annoying for a lot of decks, especially in the mid game, to get over. And they don't feel good about trading because it's a body that you're going to lose anyways. So they don't want to have to lose a card in the process, because then this card's even better. I think I give this card an 8 out of 10. This card is solid staple. This is like a card that I think I would want to pick up like the foils or the max rarity copies of a lot of these, because I think this card is going to be in like every blue deck.
Yeah, the offense and defense that this card provides is just so good. You're going to just get so much value out of it. It's basically a 2-for-1 in itself, and depending on if they actually have to trade into the unit or this sets your opponent back on points, like in tempo, then the value can just compound on top of itself. This card's just really, really strong. I'll give it a 7. Next up is Ava Achiever for 5 energy and 4 might. This unit says, when I attack, you may pay a mind power to play a card with hidden from your hand here, ignoring its cost.
I mean, you could, I guess you get to do it at like instant speed, like fake instant speed, play a thing. It's a little under rate, like it's a 4 for 5, which isn't like, it's not terrible, but not great. You have to be contesting that point to set, or does it bypass that? Does it bypass the ability? Like, do you have to contest that point?
It just says play here.
So this card's interesting. It lets you play effectively a combat trick. How this works, if you're confused, is pretty much you choose a hidden from your hand and you're just casting it to whatever battlefield he's attacking at. It is nice because if they print, right now there's not a lot of too high costed hiddens, but if they print one that's really expensive, they have to be careful because of this card. Like, they can't be printing any like really expensive hiddens, which I guess because of the mechanic itself they really can't anyways, because they can just be played for free. But this card's interesting. It lets you add a combat trip. It doesn't cost any power. It is a little understated. I'm not sure how great this really is. You're kind of just setting that hidden anyways, but instead you get to play it immediately. There's no drawback time. This is a card that's kind of hard to evaluate just reading it. Now, I can't say I've played it a whole lot. Just the way this kind of plays out in my head, it doesn't seem great because you already have to have the hidden. It has to line up well. You also have to do it before your opponent actually plays any reactions of their own, so you kind of don't know what you're getting yourself into when you do that, because it's just right as he attacks. I'm going to give this card a 4. I don't think this card is that great. I could see some upside, and this is one that's a little harder for me to evaluate, but I don't see it being all that great with what we have right now.
Yeah, I think this card's okay in like a Teemo deck. Sometimes you'll just get to play your draw 2 for 1 power. If we had units that were good to cheat in with hidden, which like Alex already covered, like it doesn't really make sense that they would print those because they can already be hidden for 1, so you can't really give too much value or make too big of a unit with hidden text on it. We also don't have any cards that like give cards in your hand hidden or anything like that yet. So if we ever get things like that and we're able to abuse this guy more, then maybe he'll go up, but I'll give him a 5. Next up, we have Convergent Mutation for 2 energy and a power. This is a reaction speed spell that says choose a friendly unit, increase its might until it equals the might of another friendly unit.
Something to note, this is just until the end of the turn. It received a clarification errata, so it's not permanently buffing it. This card's like alright. I don't think it's that great. It's like a nice buff spell, and I can see where this might be citable into like bigger decks. Like where maybe you have like a deck that has some like early big units, some of those like vanilla beaters that we've kind of talked about, but the early ones. But even then, I don't know how great it is. It costs a power too, which really holds it back. Like at this point, I'd rather play Smokescreen. It's unlikely that you're going to get more than 4 out of this, which is what Smokescreen does. I don't see it being that great. It also has the requirement of requiring you to have another unit that's big. I don't think it'd be played in addition to Smokescreen either. I don't think this card is very good. And unless they print some like really early big guys, I'm going to give this card a 3. I don't think this card is good.
Yeah, I could see it having some use cases, but Smokescreen is just almost always better. Doesn't require you to have 2 units and have like a very specific setup of a unit types of one being very small and one being very big. So most of the time, Smokescreen is just always going to be better than this card. I'll give it a 3. Next up is Dr. Mundo for 8 energy and 2 power. This is a 6 might unit that says his might is increased by the number of cards in your trash, and at the start of your beginning phase, recycle 3 from your trash.
Don't see it. Again, like I talked earlier, expensive guys that are just vanilla beaters aren't that great to me, especially when they cost this much. This costs 8 and 2 power. That's a lot. Now, this guy could be massive. Like, this guy could be like a 20, and still, I wouldn't feel great about paying 8 for him, because if I play any deck that has any sort of spot removal, this guy is just a terrible investment. He also, for some reason, for all his costs, he has this downside of having to put 3 cards from your trash into your bin. Like, this guy needed some sort of drawback, like he was too strong otherwise, and he does see a little bit of play. I can see where, like, again, like, this is anti-mill tech, but why would you play this for 8 when we already have a better anti-mill tech for 2? So, like, I don't see the applications there. Like, maybe he's a good finisher against decks that just don't have spot removal. Something like Kaisa is where I could see some sideboard play for this guy. I could see, like, I could understand the viability there, where they're constantly removing your guys, they're making your grave big, you play this, along comes this guy, and he's a massive beat stick, but he only starts at 6 too, so like, for him to even reach rate, or a little above rate, you need 3 cards in your bin, which is not unreasonable. I don't see this guy reaching his true potential unless there's some sort of combo, and like, even then, like, he's just a vanilla beater at his very best. I'm going to give this guy a 4. Like, I see some sideboard playability, which kind of maybe makes him a little bit better, but I'm not feeling it.
I think I'm a little bit higher on Mundo than you, but I don't think he's fantastic by any means, but I do think that if you're not playing against Order, this card is very powerful. Like, there's game states that you can get to where this guy is sitting at like 20 something. We've seen that in like Kaisamirs and stuff like that, and a lot of the times, though, this guy is usually, if you guys are seeing a lot of this card see play in the main decks, a lot of the times he'll see play in game 1 because people are playing their Zon battlefield that says when you conquer it, you get to loot a card, discard 1, draw 1, which lets you fill up your grave way faster. And then a lot of players will actually side this guy out once that battlefield is no longer in rotation. So that just goes to show that this guy really does need setup to get value out of him. In like blue-purple decks, which currently is only Teemo, you do have a lot of ways to fill your bin faster, like discard your hand, draw 4. You can play a bunch of those cards and stuff, so you can really make giant Mundos that basically no deck except Order can take care of. So I do think that this deck has application, or this card has good application, but I just don't think we have it yet, but I'll give him a 6. Alright, next up is Ekko for 5 energy and a power. This is a 5 might unit with Accelerate and Death Knell Recycle me to ready your ruins.
I mean, this guy reads incredibly well, especially in a game where you can preemptively tap your energy. A lot of games nowadays, those of you that come from Magic, you can tap your lands preemptively before playing things. In a lot of games nowadays, they don't let you do that. You can only pay your resources as you cast things. You can't actually float mana or energy or resources. But in a game like this where you can, the potential there is you could have 10, tap all 10 of them, play this guy for 5, or for 6 with the accelerate, explode him, trade him into something, whatever, and now you have all your resources back. You have an extra 4, so now you've got 14, and this is where you can bypass that mana cap, where, like we talked about before, and just like really combo off. He's also he's a hardy dude. Like, he's a 5 for 5. He's on rate. He costs 1 power, but when you're getting all your energy back, that's pretty good. With the accelerate now, he's a 6 and 2 power, but even a 5 with accelerate for 2 power is really reasonable for what his effect does. He's a solid creature. I like this guy. I would expect at some point this guy is going to see a lot more play. He's going to fit more into a combo deck, so there probably has to be some sort of combo deck to make this guy really tick. But even then, I could see a little bit of play of this just in like a standard blue, like maybe even a control deck where they're just like, I want an accelerate guy that's just going to give me he's going to trade and give me all those resources back to leave up for spells or other plays. I'm actually going to give this guy a 7 out of 10. I think this guy's solid.
Yeah, I think Ekko's really good. I'll give him a 7 as well. I think just the accelerate body is good enough, and the death knell is just really, really strong. Especially, this is pretty much one of the only ways that you're gonna ever play Time Warp, which we haven't seen yet, but I think that this guy does have a lot of potential. Next up is Heimerdinger for 3 energy and a power. This is a 3 might unit that says, I have all exhaust abilities of all friendly legends, units, and gear.
So I'll start this with saying I was a Heimerdinger Hera, and what they've done to my boy is absolutely unacceptable. This is just an absolute desecration to my man. They might as well have just dug him up, buried him, dug him up, pissed on his grave, burned him, and then buried him again. What did they do to my boy? I can't believe what they've done. He sucks. Like, goddamn, man, I can't even believe how much worse this card got. And I get it. There's potential in some combo deck where you just need to, like, you have some, like, tap ability that's, like, letting you combo off, but we don't have that yet. And right now, man, this guy is awful. He's a 3 for 3, which seems all right, but then he costs a power. He's slow as hell because he can't use any of these tap abilities the turn he comes in play. Like, this is a combo piece, and make no doubt about it, this could fit somewhere in the future, but man, I am just so upset with how bad he sucks right in this moment. Like, he reads like he could do something, but taps are just so slow as it is. The one thing that I will note is that he does get the effect of your legend, so if you do have like a legend ability that is really powerful, he gets that. But like, man, I just, what they've done to him, just, I'm so angry, and this is probably worse than he deserves, but I'm going to give this guy a 4. I cannot stand how badly they hurt my boy like this.
Yeah, I think the potentiality is there for him for future combos. Even in Victor, like, this card reads like it might even be okay getting to spawn 2 tokens a turn, but really the biggest issue, this is one of those mini units that just falls in the falling star, just makes this card so unplayable category. It just, 3 and a power for 3 is just like setting yourself back so far, especially when they're just going to blow up whatever you played on your first turn, and then this guy with 1 single falling star. So all of the setup that he requires, he's just kind of a sitting duck to get removed. And yeah, I'll give him a 5 just for the potential for the combos.
Just such a disappointment.
This is not what Piltover's future looks like, my dear boys.
Next up is Kaisa for 6 energy and a power. This is a 6 might unit with ganking. She says, when I conquer, you may play a spell from your trash with energy cost less than your points without paying its energy cost, then recycle it.
This card actually reads pretty well. Like, gankings, again, that's like, it's like the bacon on the burger. It's like the hot fudge on the sundae. It's like something that you're like, yeah, I'm not going to say no to. Like, it adds value to the card, even if it's not a whole bunch, but like with her effect, the ganking does do a lot. I think she's really interesting, and I think she's gonna get a lot better as we see more spells. I think 6 for 6 and 1 power is great. That's a very fair cost. She's a champion unit with an already great legend. I actually think this card is solid. The thing that really holds her back is that the other Kaisa champion is just a little bit better, and so everybody's maxing out on that Kaisa and not really playing her. I like this card a lot, though. Like this card really seems solid. The art's pretty cool too. Like I think this is a solid card. It's a shame that it's not really seeing any play because it's a little slow, I would say. I think that's the biggest other issue, is just like it does have to conquer, and while she'll probably always conquer because of how big she is, I think she's just kind of slow, and you need you need like a good density of spells, which she does have, but I think you need a little bit. The other downside is you do still have to pay the power cost of those spells, so like, sorry, you can't play Singularity from your bin and just not pay the power cost, and that, on top of the fact that she already costs power herself, can be a bit of a drawback. But I'm going to give this card a 7. I like this card a lot. I'm honestly surprised it doesn't see that much play.
Yeah, I think 7 is good for this card. I do think that it's just being held back slightly because of the current tempo of the game. And 6, I mean, she can get blown up by Singularity, can get blown up by Rex. And she doesn't do anything immediately on play, which does hurt her a little bit, but I do like the card a lot. I think when we get more spells that we want to recur, especially like cheaper spells, because one of the things that holds this card back is when you're ahead, this card is super great because you're getting to cast like all your expensive spells as long as you have like 4 or 5 points. Most of the time you're able to cast most of the things in your bin, but if you're actually like super behind and the tempo is just not going your way this game, then this card, and you're only sitting on say like 2 or 3 points, then this card is like not super great because the energy cost needs to be less than your points. So if you only have 2 points, you can cast a Stupefy or something that's not gonna really swing the game that much in your favor, especially that late in the game. All right, next up we have Malzahar for 4 energy. This is a 3 might unit that says kill a friendly unit or gear and exhaust me to add 2 power of any color.
Not feeling it, and I have actually tested with this card a lot. It's slow, it's clunky, it's understated. It just like, there's probably a combo deck where this will be nice. Like I've even seen some of the decks that are trying to abuse higher power cost spells play this, but like maybe like if you need to self kill your own guys, but again, this, you have to tap this, so it takes a whole turn. It only makes 2 power, which is not like, it's actually not a lot, especially at the cost of losing a guy. Victor plays this kind of efficiently because it has the tokens, but again, it's just slow. It ends up feeling more like a gear than it does a unit, and for 4, and it can't tap immediately, it feels even worse. It's susceptible to more removal. I'm not a fan. I played with this card. It does not work as well as it reads, and even then, I don't think it reads all that great. You can kill a gear, which is like one upside to it, but again, the synergies with that are incredibly limited as of now. I actually am going to give this card a 3, and maybe it's closer to a 4 because there is potential, but I don't like this card. I don't think it's good.
Yeah, this is another card that, just like Heimerdinger, is like a gear with a body on it. And just like Heimerdinger, this thing also dies to Falling Star. So all of these really cool like units that we want to keep in our base that give you value over time, you'll notice this is a recurring theme. They all die to Falling Star, which is why pretty much none of them see play right now, because they're slow and they need to stay in your base to get value over multiple turns, and 2 of them can just get removed for 1 card. So a lot of people are trying to bypass, at least unlike Heimerdinger, this thing does not cost you a power, so you're not gonna lose your resources over time like Heimer, but it's still not a great card. Maybe if we get a Time Warp deck someday, this card could see a little play.
It's the dies to Doomblade argument all over again, but it is very valid.
Next up is Progress Day for 6 energy and a power. This spell draws 4.
Eureka! It's Progress Day, and another card that I did play a little bit of in Runeterra. Unfortunately, it's just not the same here. There's no bank system. It does draw 1 extra card, but I don't hate it. It's not terrible. Like, I mean, drawing 4 is a lot of cards. That's a lot more there's not a lot of draw in the card economy for this game. It's only 1 power. It does cost 6, but I can see where you're in like a slower mirror, maybe like a Kaisa mirror, some of the slower matchups. Maybe you're playing against one of the ramp decks where you're just like, you know what, they're not doing anything this turn. I'm just gonna draw 4, and that's totally acceptable. And I don't hate this card. Like, it's fine. It's a decent card. I'm gonna give it a 5. I think this card is playable. I think more in the sideboard side of things. No pun intended, but I think this is an okay card. It's not as good as it was in Runeterra, which I've said a lot this video.
Yeah, I think 5 is good for the card. Draw 4. Turning 1 card into 4 cards is really great, and it's gonna just pull you ahead in the resource game tremendously, but we just don't have a lot of slow decks that can really take advantage of that right now, and you can only do that in certain matchups. So if we are in slower formats, you'll probably see more progress days start to squeak into main decks, but otherwise you're probably only going to see maybe one of this or in the side or main until the game slows down a bit. Next up is Promising Future for 5 energy and a power. This says each player looks at the top 5 cards of their main deck, chooses one, and then recycles the rest, starting with the next player. Each player plays those cards, ignoring energy costs.
Cards like these are very dangerous, because anytime you say a card can play something for free and it costs something like 5, where your cards are capping out as high as like 9 or 10, dangerous stuff can happen. It only costs 1 power. And while you still have to pay the power cost on the card you might be playing, if you're playing a card that ends the game, you don't care. Now, it does give your opponent an opportunity to play the cards too, so that is a nice drawback, and it does add like a risk factor. And there's not really a great way to, like, for this to be good, you have to either have a high density of win conditions, or you need to have a way to set up, like, put a card on top of your deck from your hand, or stack your deck, or some sort of like tutor that puts a card on top of your deck. So I think that I think for a card like this, there's a lot of potential, dangerous potential, and I even think cards can be limiting to design space, because you now have to think about every card you print from now on. What happens if this just gets played for 5 now, if there's a way to set it up? It is a bit of a high roll card as of now, though, because there isn't a way to set up. I'm going to give this card actually 6 out of 10, because I do think it's a decent card, and I think there's so much future potential that even right now, if it's only like a 4 out of 10, I think the future potential on this card is so high that I have to give it a 6. And like, this is dangerous. Cards like these, I don't like to see them this early, because you have to design around them so much. You have to be keeping cards like this in mind. Even if your opponent gets 5, if you're playing against like a weenie aggro deck, and the card I'm getting is take an extra turn, or discard my opponent's entire hand, it's not going to matter if they get a 2 or a 3 drop or a 4 drop early. Like, this card is very dangerous. It's very, very high power potential. So
yeah, I don't have much to add other than what Alex said. I think I'll give the card a 6 as well. I do think that this card is pretty much one of the only ways to play the Time Walk deck right now. And funny enough, one thing to note with this card is that this is actually one of those multiplayer cards that is worse in multiplayer, because in 1v1 you're only giving one player a free card, but in multiplayer you're actually giving all 3 other players a free card. So this card is actually really bad in multiplayer. You don't want to play that kind of deck in multiplayer. Next up, we have Thousand-Tailed Watcher for 7 energy and a power. This is a 7 might unit with Accelerate. It says when you play me, give enemy units -3 might this turn to a minimum of 1.
if Singularity is the goat of spells, this is just the well, I guess it's a fox, not a goat. This is the fox of units.
What does the fox say?
This guy is broken. This is my single favorite card in the game. I love this card. I'll never play a blue deck without at least 2, probably 3 of this. This guy is just cooking. He is so good. 7 for 7 on rate, only 1 power. All your opponent's units get -3 might for the entire turn, no matter where they are. Absolutely incredible. Pairs well with removal. You'll pretty much win any fight against anything. And as if that weren't enough, they gave him Accelerate too. So now for 8 and 2 power, this guy can attack immediately. He by himself is a 7, so he's going to push pretty much any point with his effect on the board. Like, you're going to be able to just crack any point your opponent's holding the turn this guy comes down. I mean, he is just absolutely incredible. I love this guy. This is my hands down my favorite card in the game. And so I'm going to be a little biased when I say this, but this guy's a fucking 10. Absolute stud. Absolutely love this card. I mean, I don't know what else. I can sing praise about this card all night, but I mean, this guy's incredible. I see no reason not to play this in a blue deck.
Yeah, once again, when Alex gives a 10, I'm also going to have to give a 10. The Fox is a crazy card. This is pretty much one of the main reasons that we said in an earlier video, like how people don't really stack up units on battlefields. It's kind of because of the Fox, like especially if you're playing against the blue deck. When you're at 6, you're just like in the danger zone. You're always just terrified that if your opponent's at 6 points, you're just always terrified that they're going to drop Fox and take both battlefields, and there's just almost nothing you can do about it. Like, this card basically always seals the game when it's played in certain positions, and especially when you're at 6 points. Even played from behind, though, this thing can just help you like make trades that you normally wouldn't be able to make. It's just really versatile. Even without the accelerate, it's still a fine body. It's 7 for 7. Like, this unit is huge. It just does so much on such a big body. I love the Fox. Great card.
What does the fox say?
Next up, we have Victor, which is a 4 energy, 1 power unit for 3. When you play a unit on an opponent's turn, when you play a card on an opponent's turn, play a 1 might recruit unit token in your base.
4 for 3. He's kind of understated already. Cost of power. Blue has a good density of things they can play on your opponent's turn, but your opponent also kind of controls that a little bit. So like, if they don't need to attack that turn, like they're like sitting high and dry and you're holding up like 8 energy or something, you have this guy on the board, they might not give you the chance to actually, like, they might not push to combat so you can't play those actions, or they might not like play any when played so you can trigger your reactions. And just like, I don't think this guy's very good at a baseline, but he also gives your opponent a very clear indicator of when you're going to try to do this. So if you have all that energy up, it's very easy to play around. Him being understated, costing a power, I'm not a fan. There's already a better champion for Victor. Even the potential there seems kind of low unless you have like some crazy, like maybe if there's a deck that's all it's doing is playing like 10 to 15 creatures max in the deck, like maybe like 12 creatures, and all it's doing is casting spells on their turn, I could see where this gets a little bit better. But I think this guy's too broadcasted. He's too small. Like we talked about, the shooting star is going to just kind of clean him up. I'm going to give this guy like a 3. I just don't think he's very good.
Yeah, I think I like the utility of the tokens so enough that I'll give him a 4, but he's not a very good card. Yeah, it's just another one of those gear units that dies to Falling Star. Like, Blue just has so many of these 3 might units that want to stay at home and generate value, and they just all get clean 2 for 1 by this card. So yeah, Victor's okay. Next up is Wraith of Echoes for 6 energy and a power. This is a 5 might unit that says the first time a friendly unit dies each turn, draw 1.
So to note, this card does not count itself in the draw, which actually I think it significantly impacts its rating for me, because cards like these, when they actually replace themselves, are a lot better. Because what happens is when a card like this gets played, they typically become the primary target. All that being said, he's a 6 for 5 and 1 power, a little understated. He costs a power, but that's to be expected for a 6 cost. I think this card's okay, especially if you have a deck that's like feeding tokens. He's got enough stats that he's not dying to very basic removal, like the Falling Star, which I've been calling Shooting Star this entire video. But I think he's all right. He's just a little slow. Again, slower units that cost this much can be a little bit worse, but he can get you a draw immediately, which is nice the turn he comes down. The limit is that it's only once per turn, even if it counts your opponent's turns. This guy's not terrible. He's not great. I'm going to give him a 5, and I feel generous on that, but I think 5 is where I want him to be. Victor makes the best use out of him, but even then, I would rather be playing like a Riptide Rex at that point in the game.
Yeah, I like 5 for this guy, but he is, again, another one of those gear type units. Another one that you don't really want to put him on a battlefield. You don't really want to send him out because he won't draw for himself if he does die. And maybe with, like, you know, living the dream of having this guy plus Malzahar sitting at base and cracking tokens and generating power and drawing cards sounds really cool, but it's just way too slow for how the game actually plays right now.
It sounds great until you get Singularity.
Yeah. Next up is Ahri Inquisitive for 3 energy and a power. This is a 3 might unit that says when I attack or defend, give an enemy unit here -2 this turn to a minimum of 1.
So this card's effectively a 5, except when it comes to removal. It does cost a power, but it's on raid. It's a 3 for 3. It's effectively a 5 for 3 because of the way its effect reads. It still does die to that falling star like we talked about, but at least it has a good effect outside of that. It does win fights fairly well. I think the power, especially on earlier units, kind of hold those back. But I think this is a good card overall. I think this card could see play. It is very good at being aggressive and defending against aggressive decks. Its only shortcoming is just like it is very vulnerable to removal. I'm going to give this card a 6. I think it's a decent card. It's well statted for what it does. If this card didn't cost a power, I think this would be like a staple, but because it does, it's held back a little bit. But overall, I think it's a decent card.
Yeah, I like 6 for Ahri. It kind of just has a built-in Master Yi, like +2 on the offense or the defense. It is a little bit different because of that minimum of 1, and you know, it doesn't actually pump the unit. So like we said, removal spells are still, the deal 4s and deal 3s can still deal with it, and that is kind of what's holding this card back in the current format. Ahri will still be playing this because it is her best champion. She does get to start with it in her hand, essentially. The card is very well statted, but it just dies to a lot of things right now, which is kind of why it's not seeing a ton of play. All right, next up we have Seal of Insight, 0 for a power, make a power.
So just like all the seals I've rated before, they're all 5s in my mind. This is just like, again, if you've seen our previous videos, these cards read like Moxes. If you played Magic, they're not Moxes. They're just, it only makes a power, not an energy. These cards are really good when you open them, when you see them in the first few turns, but after that, they're pretty much just duds. They don't feel good. You really want them early, and for decks that want to spend power early, I'm not a big fan of these personally. I can see where they might get better in the future, though, if you're playing like a very aggressive or early game power intensive decks. But again, you need to open these, and a lot of times they feel to me like 3 or none cards because of the need to open them, because they feel like such duds in the late game. This is just a 5.
Yep, it's a 5. Next up, we have Teemo's Strategist for 2 energy and a power. This is a 2 might unit with Hidden. It says when I defend or am played from Hidden, reveal the top 5 cards of your main deck. Deal 1 to an enemy unit here for each card with Hidden, then recycle.
So this card obviously is kind of a build around. Like, you need a lot of a density of Hiddens to make this card good. It's a 2 for 2. It does cost a power. So based on this card's, the way this card reads, you're never playing this. Like, this is never coming out of your hand. This is always being set, so just to use this, it has the requirement of being of you controlling that battlefield. But when you do control that battlefield, this guy is really good, especially in a hidden deck. This is a card, just based on its text, I would rate a lot lower, but because I know how powerful this can be in the Teemo strategy decks, I might rate it a little bit higher. It does have the utility of being a 2 for 2, but it costs a power, so like I said, not going to see much play there. I do think this card is very good and essential in the Teemo deck. This is one of the few cards I'm gonna do this with. Just the way this card reads, it's like a 4 because you have to make a build around. But when you have that build around, when you really you're playing this in the Teemo deck, this card's like a 7. It's very, very good, especially when you high roll. When you hit that Nocturne 2, you can play Nocturne out of it. When you hit 3 or 4 Hiddens, you can absolutely decimate an opponent's attack strategy. This card's also very hard to play around at times because your opponent might know that you've set this or consider that possibility, but they don't actually know how many Hiddens you're revealing. So like, you can just high roll them sometimes. Like, sometimes they're just like, all right, I think he's only going to hit 2, you hit 3, and they're just cooked. Like, they do not feel good. Or you hit like a Nocturne and they're just like, they're cooked. Like, so I'm going to give this card a 7 in the context of the Teemo deck and a 4 pretty much everywhere else.
Yeah, I agree. The 4 is fine for him. This is one of those cards that if you saw it in like you were drafting, you would never take this guy because of how specific his build around condition is to get that value. But yeah, in constructed, in a Teemo deck, this guy shines, and he's actually a menace. He's actually a really strong card in the Teemo deck.
Yeah, this guy's great in the Teemo deck.
All right, next up is Time Warp for 10 energy and 4 power. This says take a turn after this one and banish this.
Sorry, I was just having flashbacks to being time walked over and over and over again. Oh my god, yes. These are the first cards in every game ever. When I see these cards printed, the first deck I made, I did it in this game. Billionaire here can tell you, one of the first things I tried to do is, let's build a time walk deck. Or a time warp deck, sorry. Yep. They didn't even change the name of the card. It's 2 consonants away from being time walk. So these cards are one of 2 things always. They're like 0 cost cards for me. They're either 1, unplayable, or 2, absolutely broken. Right now, Time Warp is kind of a gimmick card. It costs 4 power. They did a very good job of limiting its power, but again, that's kind of the problem with these cards is it's so limited. It costs 10, which is infinite. This card is unplayable until it isn't, and then it's broken. Taking extra turn is just insane. This is also one of the only cards in the game, I think it's one of 2 cards in the game that banishes itself, or has anything to do with the banish pile, period. So they did a good job making sure you can't recurve smart on them. It kind of like future-proofs potential infinite turn decks, which is nice. I'm glad they did that. And because of that, I think it actually, while it adds points design-wise, it takes some points from its power level, because that's usually where these cards get out of hand. Like, if you played Magic, Nexus of Fate, I mean, obviously Time Walk, if you can just, recycle that. 4 power is extremely restrictive, but cards like these are where I worry about cards like Promising Future, because Promising Future, if there was ever a way to stack this consistently, this is where Promising Future would be good, because now, even though it's going to cost you 5 power, the Promising Future plus the 4 from this, if you have enough of those seals, or you have Malzahar or some sort of combo deck, there eventually could be enough pieces to make this insane. I think this is I think this is at a baseline. This reads pretty decent, but it's this is another card that's very hard to evaluate because of the conditions that you need to make this perfect. I'm gonna give this card a 6 because it just says take an extra turn, and I it doesn't have a requirement on that. It's just paying resources and a shitload of power. I think this card is good. I just I think it's very costly, but I'm telling you, this card will just remain to be unplayable, or it will be broken. I find it hard to believe there's something where it's yeah, I'm just gonna splash one of this for the heck of it, and it'll probably be good. No, this card is going to be insane, or just stay in your bulk bin.
Yeah, I think Time Warp that's just the craziest line of text that you can see on most things. You could basically win the game from 4. If you're obviously, it's not super often that you're double holding, but if you can get to a position where you're double holding from 4, you go to 6, you just play Time Warp, you go to 8, and you win the game. So even at a base level, even if you're not building around this or a big combo power generating deck, this card can just squeak out games and just win you games that you had no business winning otherwise. And just because it can already do that without needing a lot of setup, you know that when this card is actually getting easier to play or very easy to play, then that's when you're going to have a pretty crazy format full of Time Warps popping off. And until we see that, it's going to just be a 6 for me as well, but I think that it has a lot of potential to be busted. Next up is Unchecked Power for 7 energy and 2 power. This is a spell that says exhaust all friendly units, then deal 12 to all units at battlefields.
Yeah, 12, that's a big number. I know definitely excites some of the Timmy players. They're whoa. Unchecked Power is interesting because it's designed well in that it is a board wipe, but they also make you exhaust your guys, so you can't just use this to wipe the battlefields and then push points. It's a little costly to be paired with accelerates, but if you do have cheap accelerates, it is kind of nice because you are able to wipe the board and then get those accelerates in there to take points. It does hit your own units, but you should have you shouldn't have guys at a battlefield if you're playing this. I don't see a reason to do that. You should just be able to retreat them before you do that. It's 2 power for 7, but for an effect like this, I expect it to cost 7. The problem is that people are not really stacking up battlefields like we discussed. Now, where I do see some utility in this is sideboard against some of the ramp decks where they are actually stacking up the points with big guys, and this just cleans them up. Cards like this, it's hard for them to be really bad because they they do at some point usually serve some sort of purpose. It is like the closest thing this game has to a board wipe, even if it's only at battlefields. I think this card's decent. I'm going to give it a 6. That's probably a little high, but I think just this line of text is very good, even if it doesn't see the most play. And I think there's a lot of potential here, especially in possible control decks where they're scared of the ramp decks. They're scared of these big units where they just can't kill them. And this is like one of their only ways to actually keep those guys from running wild.
Yeah, I like this card a lot. I think that if we already see that they're starting to reward holding a lot, even though those decks aren't doing very well, we can only assume that they're going to continue to make hold conditions matter more and more. And as that starts to happen more and more, this card is just going to gain more and more value. But I do think that, like Alex said, the main use for this card right now is like sideboard versus the Aurora decks or just the big ramp decks. You'll note when you go look at those deck lists that those guys are only running like 8 creatures, or maybe sometimes 9 or 10, but usually about 8 to 10 creatures maximum. So if they're ever getting to the point where they're spitting out like 4 or 5 of their guys on a point, and you could just take out most of their units for just one card, like those decks don't really have a lot of ways to recycle their units and keep getting value out of the Aurora. Only a couple of Aurora decks can actually put cards back into their deck from the bin. So like this can just literally run your opponent out of guys entirely in those ramp decks and just allow you to beat them on attrition that way. So I think that it has a lot of potential in the board. And that is going to be our final card. Let us know what you think of the reviews. Let us know if you disagree with us on anything. We will be back with part 4 very soon. Catch you guys later.
See ya.